Hey, what's going on? And welcome back to D+Pad Life. And today we're going to be discussing the original Resident Evil 4. Oh man, what isn't there to say about Resident Evil 4 that hasn't already been said, right? I mean, people love this game. It's legendary. You look at a top 100 games list of all time best games, and Resident Evil 4 generally is guaranteed to be in that top 10. It's legendary. It really is. That's really the right word for this game. I mean, it made Leon Kennedy a household name. The rookie cop from Raccoon City is now a well-trained, badass government agent full of quick quips and sarcastic statements and jokes. And it's a cheesy good time. I love me some Resident Evil 4, and I hope you do too. And if you're new to the channel, definitely consider subscribing. I've been covering all of the Resident Evil games. This is the 9th game we've covered in the series. We've done Resident Evil 1 through 3 as well as their remakes, Resident Evil Code Veronica, and Resident Evil 0. So we're jumping back in, and we're going to be covering the original Resident Evil 4 and its remake. So subscribe if you like Resident Evil content. I discuss it all the time. And before we jump in as well, talk to me down in the comments, man. Tell me what your thoughts are on Resident Evil 4. I'd love to hear about how you first experienced this game. What system did you check it out on? Was it GameCube, PS2, PS3, 360, PS4, Xbox One? When did you first get your hands on it? Maybe the Wii edition. That's a really fun version of the game, to be honest. In fact, just to make sure I discuss that, I'm going to put this Wii mode out here to hopefully help keep me reminded. But with that being said, let's jump into it. So in this series, I like to discuss my history with the games, my first experiences with them, my general thoughts, the things I like, the things I dislike, and all of that. So if that sounds interesting, be sure you subscribe, stick around, and yeah, let's hang out. So Resident Evil 4, the original. Oh, and real quick, by the way, I'm sick. So if I sound different, or if I'm like, my cadence is different, or my tone is different, that's why. I'm pushing through this. It's been too long since I've released some content, so I thought, man, let's just get into it. But here we are. So Resident Evil 4, man, I was highly anticipating this game, like big time, super excited to get my hands on this back when it was in pre-production. Now, I'd been following this game back when it was still what people have dubbed Resident Evil 3.5, where there was some story about Leon getting infected and he was going through like some sort of castle and some sort of like airship. And there's this black smog chasing him, as well as like this ghost man with a hook and like killer dolls and all this paranormal sort of stuff that didn't really fit Resident Evil, but it did seem cool to me. But even back then I was like, man, this isn't Resident Evil though. But it looked cool, looked fun, looked interesting, right? And then we got the version we ultimately ended up getting, and my experience is kind of funny. If you've watched some of my older videos, I talked about in the Resident Evil remake video how I got my GameCube under some pretty cool circumstances. My birthday was coming up. My family had more or less forgotten my birthday. We were on hard times, but my older brother had me in mind. And at this time, he was able to work and earn a living, and he bought me a GameCube as well as Resident Evil Remake. So it put me in this opportunistic position to get myself to actually be able to play Resident Evil 4 when it would first come out, right? And so I just remember it getting delayed and delayed and delayed. And I was getting so freaking frustrated, man. I was getting so frustrated to the point where I actually sold my GameCube, the one my brother gifted me. I regret that, but I ended up getting another one, but I sold it to get an OG Xbox, thinking like, man, I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, I was a young kid. I was dumb. I was like, man, screw Nintendo, screw Capcom. I'm not going to support these platforms anymore, and I'm going to go to something else. And it was a terrible choice because I had like a nice, I think I had like 14 to 20 games at that point. Really solid collection. I sold all those great games, sold the GameCube my brother gifted me, got an OG Xbox, and within a matter of like a handful of months realized I had made a terrible choice. The OG Xbox, while it is a great system, it just wasn't the system for me. And by the way, I already had a PlayStation 2. I had worked over a summer and got myself a PlayStation 2. But so I ended up selling the OG Xbox, using that money and paying the difference to get a GameCube again in a few games. That being said, I think after I was able to achieve that, a month or two later, Resident Evil 4 finally came out. And my two older brothers, the one who got me the GameCube and my other, split the cost on getting me the GameStop Special Edition version, which, for those who don't know, all it was the game came in this red tin that said Resident Evil 4 on the front, Resident Evil 4 GameStop Edition. And you got the game and like art cell of Ada Wong. Nothing really that special. It actually spoiled that Ada was in the game for me. That was kind of irritating. But that was my first exposure to the game. And man, when I gotta tell you, did I love Resident Evil 4? I adored Resident Evil 4. Now, I had a great time. I played it twice back to back, and it's a very long game. It's like over 20 hours long, which is extremely long for Resident Evil games. And actually, we can jump into this. Extremely long for Resident Evil games. I will say, even back then, I was very well aware that this is a great game, but a terrible Resident Evil game. And I still feel that way to this day. For me, this is when the series really took a huge shift, and it basically never returned to the style of games that I'd fallen in love with. For me, the tank controls, preset camera angles, pre-rendered backgrounds, style of the first 4 games, 1 through 3 and Code Veronica, to me, that was really Resident Evil. And also just like the bioweapons and Umbrella and just all of that was really Resident Evil. That was what I had fallen in love with. And so when they made this change to like parasites and the Ganado and, you're in a village in Spain and there's this cult and these druids and all this sort of stuff, it just became pretty far-fetched, and it started to feel like something totally different. What I really wish they had done is just release this game as its own franchise or as like a Resident Evil spin-off. Like, I don't know, call it like Resident Evil The Possessed. And then Resident Evil 5 could have been Resident Evil The Possessed 2. And then they could have still continued those more conventional styles. But granted, I understand that series have to evolve. They have to change in order to like bring in a larger audience so that they can continue to grow and be successful and garner higher and larger budgets so that they can expand, right? Like I understand that. I'm not necessarily mad at Capcom for that. I get it. But as a fan who really liked what they were doing, it was pretty unfortunate for me. But all that aside, that does not take away from just how much fun this game is. This game is an absolute blast, an absolute classic, very enjoyable. It's not perfect. There's some stuff that's kind of about it. I mean, you think about having to do the, wow, the phrase is escaping me right now. Escort mission, basically, with the escorting of Ashley Graham. To me, it's not as cumbersome as people make it out to be. I think her AI is pretty dang sharp and pretty good, that she mostly stays out of the way. And one of the things I really appreciated about this game was the checkpoint system, where you could just reload a checkpoint and like dive right back into it. I thought that was pretty sharp, pretty well done. It's kind of interesting. I thought like a gameplay demo would show, but it's just sitting here. It's kind of funny. Let's see what happens if I press X. Please wait. There we go. Maybe this is what I needed. Yeah, I thought, for the most part, she was pretty good. It didn't necessarily like bum me out that much, but overall, just a really fun game. The GameCube version looks gorgeous still. To this day, the GameCube version is freaking beautiful, man. Eventually it came to the PS2 and it's still a great game. And I think that's the version most people played back in the day, but it is extremely ugly. I think if you don't know better and you haven't really been exposed to the GameCube version, you wouldn't even really care. It's just what the game looks like. And you're kind of used to the muddy textures on PS2 at that point. So, Yeah, I think for most people, the PS2 version was fitting. One of the cool versions that a lot of people sleep on is the Wii version. What made the Wii version special was that there was a cursor on screen at all times. So you could aim your cursor with the Wiimote, right? And then when you would ready your weapon, because if you think about it, you would have to ready your weapon, aim and shoot, right? On all the other versions. But on the Wii version, that cursor was always going to be where your laser would point. So you could point at a guy's head as he's approaching you, ready your weapon, and Leon's already pointed at his head. And then you could just fire to attack. You could also just waggle the Wiimote to swing your knife. So you didn't have to ready your knife, then swing it. You would just waggle and Leon would snap into a swinging position just instantaneously. So the Wii version is just a way faster and frenetic and honestly OP way to play the game. The Wii version is really, really fun, but also really, really easy in my eyes. There is another version of the game too on the Meta Quest, which was, a VR platform where they took this version of the game, the OG version with the OG graphics, and put it into a headset. And I did get the chance to play that version of the game. And I really liked it. I had a blast. I did not beat it. I ended up selling my Quest to go towards my PlayStation 5. I had to sell a few things in order to get one. Back then I didn't have the extra income. And so it's kind of funny. That was a gift for my wedding from a friend. And so it's funny. In this one story, I had 2 gifts that I sold, which I know for some people is a big no-no. To me, I've always looked at it like, well, it's my thing that you gave me. It's up to me what I do with it. And if I choose to jockey it for something else, and that's fine. So in any case, the MetaQuest version 2 is really, really great. Really, really fun. If you've been on the fence about trying that at all, definitely try it. One of the things that I really dug about it is you really do feel like you're in Resident Evil 4. You really do feel like you're in the village. But what's funny is it doesn't just feel like you're in Resident Evil 4 or in the village. It feels like you're in a I think it's 6th, right? Or is it 7th? It might be 7th. A 7th generation game. You feel like you're in a GameCube game. And that's just really neat to me. It like strongly feels that way. And man, you can get up close and personal with all the enemies. Again, it's another OP experience. You're certainly very overpowered in the MetaQuest version, but ultimately, you do feel it is a really good time. It's an absolute blast, to be honest with you. So, what do I have as far as like complaints for Resident Evil 4? I guess my main thing was, I kind of already mentioned it. I wasn't a fan of how much of a departure this was for the series. It really took the series in a whole new direction. And while the games are extremely fun and I do like them, they just never quite felt like Resident Evil to me after that. Like Resident Evil evolved and became something that, for one reason or another, maybe I was naive or ignorant, but I wasn't anticipating for it to go in the direction it ultimately went in. As an adult, looking back and kind of recognizing where the story was going and like the stakes of the story and what things actually meant, it does make sense. Like, if you really look at it, you can understand how we went from RE1 to RE6. And I know RE6 gets a lot of hate, but you can really understand how it got there just by following the trends and how things were progressing for these characters in this world. And like ultimately, like if this is Umbrella's goal, well, where is the end result of that? It all kind of made sense, but I don't know. I still think they could have kept it slow plotting a little bit. They could have kept it scary. I don't think it necessarily had to become some sort of action game where you're kicking enemies in the face and punching boulders and stuff like that. But all of that's a story for another time. The other thing I didn't really like about Resident Evil 4 was, it wasn't scary at all. Not even a little bit. Maybe a little claustrophobic at times, maybe a little intimidating, but never scary. And that's something I always really want from Resident Evil. Even if they don't succeed in having me scared, I want them to at least attempt it. And this didn't feel like an attempt. This felt like an action game with horror theming rather than a horror game with action content, if that makes sense. Like, yeah, it certainly was a shift, right? But before I start like repeating myself, I think we're going to go ahead and conclude it there. I certainly have more I could dig into, more I could say, but my main focus with these videos is to just give general synopsis, general thoughts on my time and my impression and thoughts around this franchise. At some point, we'll likely do videos where I dig deeper into each and every single one, kind of like retrospective style, maybe. That's not exactly what this channel's for, but I wouldn't be shocked because I really do love this entire series. Even games I had a problem with ultimately grew on me. So with that being said, we'll wrap it up on the original Resident Evil 4, but make sure you subscribe and come back for next time when we start digging into Resident Evil 4, the remake. Yes, so if you enjoyed hanging out today, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the conversation, please give a like. It goes a long, long way in supporting the channel, man. We've been growing slowly but steady. I love to see it. I think the last time I did an upload, we were at like 65 subs, and now we're at like 90. So in between then and now, or I should say, since starting these videos, since Resident Evil 1's discussion video, we were at like 65. Now we're like at 89 or 90, which it's incredible, man. I am loving the fact that people are enjoying the content enough to subscribe. I think that's really cool. And I love the fact that many of you are commenting. So be sure you do that here below, man. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Resident Evil. Do you think I'm wrong with my general impressions of the series? What do you like about Resident Evil 4? What's your favorite thing? Who's your favorite character in Resident Evil 4? And I'll say this, anyone but Leon. Let's keep Leon out of it. I think that's like an easy answer. Maybe who's your favorite villain? That could be a fun thing to hear you guys talk about and to join in on the conversation. I'd actually have to give it some thought on who is mine, to be completely honest with you. But with all that being said, thank you for tuning into D+Pad Life. I'll see you guys next time for the Resident Evil 4 remake. Take care, guys.